I now look to Sam Hall to continue the case for the opposition.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak in this debate today. As we've already heard from the speakers, defining ethical consumption can be a difficult task. Does it, for example, include a suitcase of wine or indeed a birthday cake if it's consumed at work during a lockdown? Now, I'm not going to stand up here today and defend every element of capitalism in its current form. In fact, I believe strongly that substantial reforms to capitalism are needed if consumption is to become both environmentally and socially sustainable. It is hard to deny that since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, human consumption has had a profound effect on the health of our planet. The invisibility of environmental costs within markets has wrought great harm on our natural world. But what if markets were rewired to restore rather than deplete the biosphere? What could we achieve then? My argument tonight is that ethical consumption is indeed possible under a capitalist system, provided social and environmental costs are accounted for within it. And in fact, that it is only through a capitalist system that we can hope to generate the wealth and create the goods and services that we need to tackle the huge array of social and environmental problems which we face. Now, I want to be clear that current modes of consumption are not sustainable. In short, we are taking from nature at a faster rate than it can replenish itself, depleting the stock of natural capital upon which we depend. We would need 1.6 Earths to sustain our current consumption habits. We continue to add climate-warming greenhouse gases to our atmosphere, and we're on track for at least 2.4 degrees of warming, well above the goal agreed in Paris of 1.5 degrees. The abundance of mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians has declined starkly, on average by 60% over the last decade, and around 1 million species are thought to be at risk of extinction in the coming decades. But despite this bleak picture, I am optimistic about our ability to turn this around under a capitalist system. And in fact, I believe that it is the only system under which environmental progress is possible. Why, you may ask, am I confident, and how should we get there? Well, first, we're not yet internalizing negative environmental externalities in markets. At the moment, the prices we pay as consumers rarely reflect the full costs of consuming those goods. Instead, a sizable share of those costs is borne by society as a whole. In the case of carbon, it is government which is paying for the extra flood defences to deal with the consequences of climate change, rather than those who emit the greenhouse gases. But if we were to start pricing carbon across the economy, it is polluters who will pay for the damage they are causing rather than taxpayers, and we can incentivise companies to switch away from polluting technologies and consumers to make greener choices in their lives. When it comes to nature, markets have been even worse at factoring in the loss of species and habitat to economic decisions. Nature is often silent in our economic transactions, despite the many benefits that it provides in terms of food and fuel provision, climate regulation, drinkable water, breathable air, medicines, and much more besides. But again, there is a solution. Governments and the private sector have to start measuring their impact on nature, get it onto the balance sheets, and start seeing nature as an asset to manage. Frameworks for natural capital accounting are already being developed, and they now need to be put into practice. My second reason for optimism about capitalism is the proliferation of businesses which are inventing and selling products that reduce environmental damage. In just 11 years, Elon Musk has built a $1 trillion company at Tesla. Tesla's electric cars are not only making emissions cuts by displacing petrol and diesel cars on our roads, but they're also transforming public perceptions about electric cars. On a smaller scale, there are many innovative companies designing solutions to environmental challenges, such as Hummingbird in Britain here, which sells drone technology to help farmers more precisely target the application of pesticides. Now, these businesses are developing these products, not because they're tree huggers pursuing the common good, but because they deliver a healthy return and are responding to powerful consumer trends. Businesses do not even need to have an explicit green purpose to do good for the environment. With the right price signals in place and accounting processes, they can all take action to minimise their environmental impact, whether by switching to green energy or tackling pollution in their supply chains. All successful businesses can generate the economic growth and the tax revenues that we need to fund the green technology R&D, the infrastructure investments, the environmental regulation and enforcement that will drive better outcomes for the natural world. Now, I started today by acknowledging the environmental damage that has been wrought under capitalist systems and by showing how we can reform capitalism to tackle it. However, I also want to argue that there is no quick fix to environmental damage under alternative models either. The environmental vandalism of the Soviet Union is well documented, from the desiccation of the Aral Sea to the great nuclear catastrophe in Chernobyl, all enabled by a lack of democratic accountability and a willingness to cut back environmental safeguards in order to achieve more rapid industrialization. A more modern and perhaps less well-known example is Venezuela, which under socialist President Maduro has suffered a proliferation of environmentally damaging mining projects in protected sites, an acceleration of deforestation, and dangerous oil slicks and spills caused by nationalized fossil fuel companies. So to conclude, if we want ethical consumption, I'll ask you this question. Which of these two options is more likely to succeed? Is it reforms to capitalism so that environmental good and the profit motive point in the same direction? Or is it a political revolution to impose a new economic system which throughout history has failed to deliver a healthy environment? On this basis, I urge you to reject the motion tonight.